Well, let's speak to the Scotland Office Minister, Iain Stewart. Morning to you, Mr Stewart.
Good morning.
The Scottish Government there, you heard, would extend Farlow Scheme. The TUC would extend Farlow. Sir Keir Starmer would extend it. And Unite, the union, have said this morning they would extend it. Why aren't you extending it?
Well, the Farlow Scheme was the right intervention at the right time. And it's done its job. Lots of people are now returning to work. That doesn't mean that government support for businesses and jobs will come to an end. The Farlow Scheme was just one of a wide package of support that will continue beyond the end of October when the Farlow Scheme concludes. And as you said yourself in your introduction, the Chancellor yesterday said that he's going to be looking at much more tailored and creative interventions to support those parts of the economy that will still need it.
What is the big plan then, if projecting jobs is number one priority?
Well, so there are already schemes in place like the job retention bonus, like the Kickstart scheme, like a very wide package of financial support and loans to business to keep them going. So that's already ongoing. And if you look at our track record over the last few months, we've not been slow at coming forward to make very specific interventions in parts of the economy when that's needed. So, for example, before the summer economic statement, we announced a 1.6 billion support package for the arts and entertainment sector when they clearly needed it. So all these things are
why can't you extend the job retention scheme for vulnerable sectors then? That would be tailor making some interventions.
Well, I think there's 2 points in response to that. Firstly, it's very difficult. The Farlow Scheme was designed to be a comprehensive across all sectors of the economy. How would you tailor it for a specific sector? You will have companies working in different sectors, so it'll become administratively difficult to do that. And secondly, we're at the point now where we need to be encouraging firms to get people back to work. And that's the direction you will see the support packages going in.
And if they can't get people back to work, the Unite Union is predicting that the redundancy floodgates will open and all the billions you've already spent on the Farlow Scheme will be wasted.
No, I don't think that's a fair analysis at all. If the most recent figures out show that a very high percentage of people who were on furlough are now returning to work. We introduced flexibility in the furlough scheme, which wasn't there at the outset, which allowed people to return on a part-time basis. So this idea that there's some cliff edge at the end of October is not correct. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to preserve every job that was there before. But what we are doing is looking at how we can retrain people, create the new jobs in the sectors of the economy that will continue to expand, alongside providing that additional support for areas that need it. Like the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, which did wonders for the restaurant and food sector.
If I can ask you about testing, coronavirus testing. Matt Hancock said yesterday that it would be a matter of weeks to resolve the problems with the UK-wide testing system. That's obviously having a knock-on impact here for people who are trying to get tests done. Why is it going to take weeks to get this sorted out?
Well, where we are at the moment, just look at the increase in the testing capacity and the lab capacity that has already been in place. And I think at this point, we also just ought to say a huge thank you to people at the Lighthouse Lab in Glasgow who are working 24/7. When they first started off, they were doing about 40 tests a day. They're now doing tens of thousands. So I think we just need to be a little careful before we're critical of the work that people are doing. Yes, we need to put in more capacity. That is happening, both at the lab processing side, that there are places opening in the next couple of weeks. And, for example, in Glasgow, in the next few days, we will see another walkthrough centre to increase the testing capacity in Scotland, and that is UK government.
Just to be clear, though, we're not being critical of the work that's being done in any of these testing centres.
I wasn't saying you were, but some
Matt,
others were.
Yeah, just to pick up on something that we had in our 8 o'clock news, Matt Hancock has said that it's likely that there will be priority for NHS staff and care home staff for UK government testing. That's already being looked after up here in Scotland by the NHS in Scotland. So who in Scotland will be eligible for a test from the UK government?
Well, we're increasing the overall capacity. It's right that we prioritise, the key workers and care homes.
They're already prioritised here.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. But what is important is that people follow the guidelines and present themselves if they've got symptoms. It's not if you've just got a runny nose or feeling a bit under the weather.
If you're prioritising NHS and care staff in England and Wales for UK government capacity, what happens to people in Scotland? Because they're already prioritised here. Who in the wider population will be eligible for a government test here? There'll be a knock-on impact on the tests available here. Well,
that is for the Scottish Government to determine. What we are doing as the UK Government is increasing enormously the availability of testing in Scotland. You're quite right. I'm glad that the Scottish Government are increasing their side of testing, but the majority of testing in Scotland is run by UK bodies. And as I said, we are expanding that. There'll be another walk-through centre in Glasgow opening in the next few days. So that availability will be there. That's right and proper that the UK, when there's a demand in Scotland, we support that. But this is a devolved matter, and it's for the Scottish Government to say, who should be coming forward for a test in Scotland.
And just on matters of devolved administrations, is there work ongoing to improve relations between central and devolved administrations, given that as a Scotland Office Minister you voted through the Internal Market Bill, which is widely seen as recentralising powers to London?
Well, firstly, the UK Internal Market Bill is not about recentralising powers. It increases devolution. It increases the devolved settlement in Scotland
Market
and across
access
the UK.
rules would mean that laws brought in England would have to be introduced right across the UK and the devolved administrations, even if they didn't want those introduced.
This is manufactured grievance from the separatists. They don't like it.
It is not manufactured grievance from the separatists. I'm reading from a piece that's been written by Professor Nicola McEwen of the Centre for Constitutional Change at Edinburgh University.
This bill increases the powers of the Scottish Parliament. It protects Scottish businesses, their ability to trade unfettered throughout the whole United Kingdom. What Mike Russell was referring to... So if the Scottish Parliament wanted to introduce a law to, for instance, to tackle measures designed to tackle obesity, to reduce the amount of sugar content in food and put that on the labels, and that didn't suit producers in England, they could introduce it here, but we'd still have all the produce being sent to us from England. No,
and that's an example that I'm using from this paper, from an academic, not a politician.
We have heard all sorts of scare stories that, for example, the Scottish Government wouldn't be able to introduce minimum unit pricing for alcohol. That is not the case. This bill strengthens the devolution settlement, and what Mike Russell was trying to do yesterday was manufacture just a grievance. They don't want devolution to work. They don't want Scotland's place in the United Kingdom to be strengthened.
You're talking about Michael Russell, who's, of course, the Constitution Secretary at the Scottish Parliament.
You asked me at the outset, what my relations are. I've perfectly cordial relations with the Scottish Government. I've got responsibility, for example, for welfare powers in Scotland. The welfare powers of the Scottish Government are being increased.
It's not just the Scottish Government who's concerned about this. The Minister for the European Transition in Wales is also concerned about it. The Welsh Government isn't going to give legislative consent either.
I'm trying to answer your question. You said about relations. We have perfectly cordial and constructive relations on a whole wide area of policies. This UKIN bill, as it's called, will strengthen devolution. There are near on 100 powers that are currently residing at the EU level, which will go not just to Scotland, but to the devolved administrations across the United Kingdom. As I say, the Scottish Nationalists don't like it because it will split up will strengthen the United Kingdom, and they want to split us up.
Iain Stewart, Scotland Office Minister, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.